I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding. Not officially, anyway. I found out about it by accident, a random Instagram story from my cousin showing the invitation, gold-foiled edges glinting under soft light, with Paige's name written in perfect cursive. My sister. My only sister. The caption said, "Can't wait for the big day. Hashtag Paige and Daniel forever." I stared at it so long the letters blurred. I called Mom. She didn't answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Finally, I texted. "What's going on?" 5 minutes later, one line popped up on my screen. "I didn't want you to find out like this." That was it. No explanation. No apology. Nothing. I drove straight to my parents' house. Paige's car was in the driveway. When I walked in, she was sitting at the kitchen island with Mom, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. "You're getting married," I said. My voice sounded calm, but my hands were shaking. Paige didn't even flinch. "Yeah. And you didn't invite me?" She sighed like I was the problem. "Look, Julia, we just thought, maybe it'd be better this way." "Better how?" "I'm your sister." "That's debatable," she muttered, setting down her mug. Mom looked between us but didn't say a word. It wasn't until an hour later, when I cornered Mom in the hallway, that the truth slipped out. Paige told everyone I ruined her life. Because 3 years ago, she wanted me to pay for her college tuition, all of it, and I said no. I helped with rent, food, books, but I wouldn't sign the loans she wanted. I couldn't. Apparently, in her version of the story, I was the villain who abandoned her dreams. And now, I was being erased from the biggest day of her life. I went home that night and stared at my phone for hours, scrolling through Paige's wedding Pinterest boards, private Instagram stories, and secret group chats I'd somehow been excluded from. The anger didn't hit me all at once. It came in waves. First confusion. Then heartbreak. Then something colder, heavier. I wasn't going to let them pretend I didn't exist. I decided I'd show up. And I had no idea how badly everything would explode after that. The invitation said, "Family only." That's what broke me. Because if blood doesn't count as family, then what does? I told myself I wasn't going to go. I rehearsed it like a mantra: don't go. Don't humiliate yourself. Don't give them the satisfaction. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted me invisible. Quiet. Erased. So I bought a dress. Nothing flashy. A deep navy slip, simple and sharp. I wasn't going there to steal attention. I just wanted to exist in the same room, to remind them I was still here, that they couldn't cut me out like a cancer and pretend I never belonged. The morning of the wedding, I drove 3 hours to the venue, a sprawling vineyard estate that looked like it had been pulled straight from a glossy bridal magazine. Rows of fairy lights glittered even in the daylight, and the parking lot was already full. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, palms sweaty on the wheel, wondering if I was insane. Then I saw them. My cousins. My aunts. My father. All walking inside in groups, laughing, dressed in shades of champagne and blush. Not one of them had reached out to me. Not one had asked why I wasn't there. I walked in alone. The woman at the entrance glanced at her list. Name? Julia. Bride's sister. Her eyes flicked down, scanning, then froze. "I don't see you here." My throat went dry. I leaned closer. "I am her sister. Do you want to be the one to tell the bride you turned me away?" Her face flushed. She hesitated, then muttered, "Go ahead." Inside, the air smelled like roses and expensive perfume. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Guests turned and whispered as I walked past, their eyes darting from my face to the floor, like they'd just spotted a ghost. I found a seat near the back, heart hammering. For a moment, I thought maybe it would be fine. That I could blend in, watch my sister walk down the aisle, and leave quietly. But then Paige saw me. Her eyes locked on mine across the room, widening in shock, then narrowing into something sharper. Hate. Pure, unfiltered hate. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't going to be quiet at all. She paused at the altar. Not for love. Not for nerves. For me. Paige's veil floated around her face as she stood there, bouquet trembling in her hands, glaring like I had just set fire to her fairy tale day. The guests noticed. You could feel it ripple through the crowd, the subtle shift of shoulders, the hush of whispers. Daniel, the groom, my soon-to-be brother-in-law, leaned toward her and whispered something. She didn't answer. She was still staring at me. I didn't move. The officiant cleared his throat and stumbled into the vows, his voice a little too shaky for someone who'd probably done this 100 times. Paige smiled for the photos, but her eyes kept cutting back, sharp and poisonous, like every word she said was really meant for me. I do, she whispered. I mouthed it back. Do you? The reception was worse. Champagne flowed. Music swelled. Guests danced under strings of golden lights. And yet, every time I moved, I felt her orbit snapping toward me. Finally, it happened. Paige broke from the crowd, heels clicking hard against the marble floor. She marched straight toward me, veil discarded, hair tumbling down like some furious goddess in chiffon. What the hell are you doing here? She hissed. I came to see my sister get married. You weren't invited. Funny, I thought blood was invitation enough. She laughed bitterly, but it came out sharp, ugly. You don't get to play family now. Not after what you did. The music thumped in the background, a pop song about forever love that made the whole scene feel cruelly ironic. People were pretending not to watch, but their ears were hungry. What I did? I asked, keeping my voice low. You know exactly what I mean. I tilted my head. Enlighten me. And that's when she said it. Loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. You ruined my life when you refused to pay for it. The air cracked. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Someone coughed just to fill the silence. And in that silence, every eye turned to me. Like I was the one on trial. I grew up in Paige's shadow. Not because she was brighter. But because my parents made sure she was always standing in the light. She was 2 years younger, the baby, the one who always needed protecting, forgiving, excusing. And me? I was the fixer. The buffer. The one who had to keep the peace. When we were kids, Paige would throw tantrums that rattled the walls. She'd break toys, rip clothes, scream until her voice cracked. Mom's solution was always the same, Julia, give her yours. Don't upset your sister. By the time I was 10, I'd learned that everything in our house could be blamed on me. Paige dropped a glass. I distracted her. Paige lost a game. I should have let her win. Paige hit me. Don't provoke her. It sounds small, childish even, but that pattern calcified into adulthood. She failed an exam. I was told to tutor her. She maxed out her credit card. I was asked to help her budget. She lost another job. Julia, you're so responsible, can't you lend her something until she gets back on her feet? And I did. Again and again. Because that's what family does, right? Until the tuition fight. Paige wanted to go to a private university that cost more than both our parents earned in a year. She came to me like it was already decided. You're doing well, she said. You can co-sign the loans. It won't even affect you. Just a signature. I said no. Not because I didn't care, I offered to help with rent, books, groceries. But I wasn't about to chain myself to 6 figures of debt for a degree she didn't even seem committed to. She cried. She screamed. She told everyone I was selfish. And my parents? They agreed with her. Julia, she needs this, Mom begged. It's her future. What about mine? I asked. That was the first time I didn't cave. The first time I saw the anger in their eyes shift from disappointment to something darker. Betrayal. From that day on, I wasn't the responsible one. I was the villain. The greedy one. The one who abandoned her sister. And now, here we were, years later, standing in a vineyard ballroom, her in a wedding dress, me in navy silk, the same script replaying. Her accusing me of ruining her life. And everyone else staring, waiting for me to confess. You ruined my life when you refused to pay for it. Paige's voice cut through the reception like glass breaking. The string quartet faltered. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. 100 eyes burned into my skin. I stood there, heat crawling up my neck. Pay for what, Paige? Your life? Your choices? She sneered. College. The future I could have had. Everyone here knows it. A murmur rippled through the tables. My aunt whispered something to my uncle, shaking her head. Cousins stared at their plates. And then Mom appeared at Paige's side like backup on cue. Julia, she said sharply, this isn't the time. Can't you just let her have her moment? I laughed, too loud, too bitter. Her moment? You mean the one you've all been scripting for years? Where she gets everything handed to her and I'm the villain if I say no? Mom's mouth tightened. You don't understand. No, I snapped, my voice shaking but strong. I understand perfectly. I was always the ATM. The tutor. The babysitter. The one who bailed her out. And the one time I said no? Suddenly I'm the monster who ruined her life. Gasps. Someone muttered, that's not true. Paige's face flushed red. You don't get it. You never cared about me. Cared? I took a step closer. I cared enough to stop enabling you. I cared enough to refuse to drown myself in debt for a degree you didn't even want. Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected me to bite back. Not here. Not now. And then, the slip. The thing she didn't mean to say out loud. At least Daniel's parents know how to support us, she snapped. Unlike you. The room froze. Daniel's head whipped toward her, confusion clouding his face. What does that mean? Paige blinked, realizing too late. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. But the damage was done. The whispers started, sharper this time. Support us. Support. Money. Daniel set down his glass. Paige. What do my parents have to do with this? Her lips trembled. She looked at Mom, desperate for rescue. But Mom was silent. And in that silence, Daniel's jaw clenched. Something ugly was unraveling. And I wasn't sure if it was Paige's marriage, or the entire family. What do my parents have to do with this? Daniel repeated, voice low but dangerous. Paige's hand fluttered like she could wave the words away. Nothing. I didn't mean it like. Paige. His tone sliced through her excuses. The music had stopped. Even the waitstaff froze, clutching trays midair. Tell me. Her face crumpled. I just meant, they helped, a little. Daniel frowned. Helped what? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Mom stepped in, voice syrupy but trembling underneath. They offered to cover some costs, Daniel. Weddings are expensive, you know that. It was generous. His head snapped toward her. Some costs? Silence. Then Paige whispered, they paid for almost everything. The words dropped like stones into the room. Gasps. A fork clattered against a plate. Daniel reeled back. Excuse me? Tears welled in Paige's eyes. I didn't want to tell you, okay? But Julia refused to help, and Mom said it was the only way. Julia refused, Daniel's voice cracked, incredulous. Why would your sister be paying for our wedding? Every eye turned to me again, sharp, judgmental, waiting. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering. Because in this family, that's who I've always been. The one who pays. The one who fixes. The one who bleeds so Paige can shine. A murmur spread like wildfire. Cousins shifting in their chairs, uncles suddenly fascinated by their wine glasses. Daniel stared at Paige. So this whole wedding, everything, was a lie? You let me believe my parents were just contributing, not footing the bill. Paige reached for his arm. He pulled away. You don't understand, she pleaded. Julia was supposed to. She's always supposed to. That broke me. I laughed, sharp and hollow. Supposed to? What am I, a walking checkbook? A bridesmaid with a credit score? The tension in the room snapped like a rope. Guests whispered openly now. Daniel shook his head slowly, like he was seeing his bride for the first time. This is insane. And then his father stood. Calm, steady, voice like iron. Maybe we should all know the truth. Every eye turned to him. And suddenly, I realized. This wasn't just Paige's secret. It was the whole family's. Daniel's father adjusted his tie, scanning the room like he was about to deliver a business presentation instead of a bomb. When Paige and your mother came to us, he began slowly, they said Julia had agreed to cover most of the costs. That she was financially comfortable. That it was tradition for the bride's side to contribute more. Murmurs rippled through the guests like static. My stomach flipped. Daniel turned to Paige, stunned. You told them that? Paige's lips trembled. Mom said. But Mom was already stepping forward, her hands raised like she could conduct this chaos into harmony. Daniel, listen, families help each other. Julia has always been generous. I just assumed. Assumed? My voice cut through hers, louder than I meant. You didn't assume. You promised them my money. Without asking me. Without telling me. You planned this entire wedding on a foundation that didn't even exist. The room went pin-drop silent. Daniel's mother's face tightened. So you're saying you never agreed to any of this? I shook my head, my laugh bitter. Never. I didn't even know there was a wedding until I saw it online. They erased me because I refused to bankroll it. Gasps. Someone muttered, is that true? Paige's cheeks flamed. You're twisting everything. You've always hated me. No, I snapped. I bent over backwards for you. I gave, and gave, and gave until the one time I didn't, you painted me as the villain. And now you're standing in white silk in front of 200 people, trying to make me your scapegoat again. Mom's voice cracked, high-pitched, desperate. Julia, please, don't do this. Daniel slammed his glass down. Don't do this? This is my wedding. You lied to me, to my parents, to everyone here. The guests had stopped pretending. Phones were out, filming, eyes wide with the thrill of witnessing a disaster. I should have felt humiliated. But I didn't. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't covering. I wasn't bleeding quietly so they could feast. I was standing. And my sister, my bride's sister, was unraveling in front of everyone. Her mascara streaked. Her bouquet slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. And then, through clenched teeth, she spat the words that would burn everything down. Fine. If Julia won't pay, maybe Daniel shouldn't know what else she refused to cover. The crowd gasped. Daniel stiffened. What else? My blood ran cold. I knew what she was about to say. And it was going to destroy more than just the wedding. Daniel's jaw clenched. What else, Paige? She was shaking now, half from rage, half from panic. But she wanted blood, and she didn't care if it was hers too. She refused to help Dad, she spat. When he almost lost the house. She had the money. She just didn't. She let him drown. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Heads swiveled toward me like I had just confessed to murder. Daniel's face was a storm. Is that true? I froze. My mouth went dry. For a second, I saw myself through their eyes, cold, heartless, the daughter who turned her back while her own father begged. But then the anger surged. No, I said, voice sharp. That's not the truth. That's their version. The version they've been feeding you all. I looked at Paige, then Mom, then the sea of watching faces. Yes, Dad almost lost the house. Do you want to know why? My voice trembled, but I forced it steady. Because he took out loans in my name. Without telling me. Without asking. I found out when the collectors came after me. Gasps. Murmurs. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I paid off what I legally had to, I continued, my throat tight, but I refused to keep throwing money into a pit he dug with lies. And you know what? He still lives in that house, doesn't he? He didn't lose it. He just lost his free pass to keep using me. The room went still. The kind of silence that feels like it has weight. Daniel stared at me, stunned, then turned to Paige. Is that true? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She's twisting it. Answer me. He barked. Her face crumbled. Tears smeared her makeup into dark rivers. She couldn't meet his eyes. Daniel stepped back like he'd been punched. His parents exchanged a glance, tight, grim, vindicated. And Mom? She looked at me like I had betrayed her, like exposing the truth was worse than all the lies stacked on top of me for years. You didn't have to say that, she whispered, venom hiding in the cracks of her voice. I laughed bitterly. Didn't I? After everything you've put on me, after erasing me from this wedding, after painting me as a monster, didn't I? Paige sobbed. Daniel turned away. The guests buzzed like hornets, the story already rewriting itself in whispers and texts. And for the first time in years, I felt something break free inside me. Not guilt. Not shame. Relief. Because the truth was finally out. And it was burning everything down. The ballroom was chaos. Guests weren't whispering anymore. They were talking. Loudly. Openly. Phones lit up the room like 1,000 tiny spotlights, capturing every broken piece of Paige's perfect day. Daniel ripped his boutonniere off and tossed it onto the table. I can't believe this, he muttered, pacing, running his hands through his hair. I married into a scam. Daniel, no. Paige stumbled toward him, mascara streaked like war paint. Please, don't say that, it's not. He held up a hand, his voice sharp. You lied to me. From the start. You let your family use me. Use my family. And you think this ends with a honeymoon? Her sobs turned raw, desperate. She grabbed his arm, clinging like a drowning woman. I did it for us. No, he snapped. You did it for yourself. Gasps rippled. Someone actually clapped, then quickly stopped. And then Mom exploded. You've ruined everything, Julia, she shrieked across the room, pointing at me like a witch hunter with her first torch. All you ever do is destroy. You couldn't just keep quiet for once. I laughed, hollow and sharp. Quiet? That's all I've ever been. While you drained me dry. While you made me your scapegoat, your safety net, your punching bag. Quiet is what kept me chained to you. Her face twisted, red and furious, but she didn't argue. She couldn't. The truth had already gutted her performance. Daniel's parents stood, gathering their things. His mother's voice carried like judgment itself. Come on. This wedding is over. And just like that, chairs scraped. Guests slipped out in groups, muttering, side-eyeing, texting furiously. The string quartet quietly packed up, their bows tucked away like weapons after a failed battle. Paige collapsed into a chair, sobbing, veil crumpled on the floor. Daniel didn't comfort her. He didn't even look at her. He walked straight past me, toward the exit, shoulders stiff, jaw locked. And in that moment, I realized the truth. I hadn't just ruined a wedding. I had torn the curtain down on an entire empire of lies. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next morning, my phone was a graveyard of missed calls. Mom. Paige. Unknown numbers. Group chats lit up like wildfire, cousins asking what really happened, and sending passive-aggressive Bible verses, uncles pretending they always knew something was off. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold and just breathed. For years, my life had been a constant tug-of-war. Give more. Do more. Be more. And when I finally stopped pulling, they called me cruel. Selfish. Ungrateful. But last night proved something I had always been afraid to believe: the truth speaks louder than the lies, if you let it. Daniel's parents sent me a message. Short. Brutal. Thank you for being honest. We're sorry for what you endured. He deserves better. Daniel himself never reached out. I didn't expect him to. But I heard through a cousin that he packed a bag and left the hotel that same night. Honeymoon cancelled. Marriage over before it began. As for Paige, her last text to me was a single line. You'll regret this. Maybe. But as I scrolled past it, I felt nothing. No guilt. No fear. Just the quiet clarity of someone who has finally stopped auditioning for a role she never wanted. Mom called 12 times in a row. I let it ring every time. Finally, I blocked her number. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was clean. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the villain in their story. I wasn't the savior either. I was just me. And that was enough. I don't know what family means anymore. Maybe it's not the people you share blood with. Maybe it's the ones who don't demand you bleed for them. All I know is that the girl who walked into that vineyard alone walked out different. Not broken. Not erased. Free.